now phase 10. So let me explain what's happening with phase 10. Even though we're running Docker in a different port, right? So each one of our containers is running on a completely different port. The thing is that inside the container, the front end is still running on port 8080. So even if I try to access the container on port, let's say 21,839, inside the container, my application is expecting the traffic to come to port 8080. So that's what we need to change. So we need to tell the front end to run in the same port as these containers here. Yeah. And you see that, I mean, it doesn't sound trivial because for every container you have a different port. So you can't really hard code the port, right? And what we're gonna do here is to use a environment variable which is injected into the container by Nomad, and that environment variable is gonna tell the container where to listen to. Okay. All right. So this is my front end, and what I need to do is actually very simple. So env. So this is how you define environment variables for the Docker container. And the environment variable that my front end is expecting, that was another question during the event. People were asking. So that means for every single application, if I define a environment variable called port, that means they're gonna listen to that port. Not exactly. It depends. It only depends if the application is configured to do that. So in this case, my front end is configured to look for a port, for an environment variable called port. If it finds, it's gonna listen to that port. Otherwise, it's gonna listen on port 8080. So that really depends on your application. Some applications you need to specify the port via arguments. And if that was the case, then here in the config, you would specify the arguments for your container, and there you would specify the port. But for this application is an environment variable. Okay, now we need to specify the environment variable, which is injected by Nomad, that tells the port of the container. And to do that, there is it's kind of an interpolation syntax. So it's $, curly brackets, and then the name of the variable is Nomad underscore port underscore the label. Now we need to pay attention to this. So the label is, in our case, under lowercase HTTP. If you define anything else, you would have to specify here. So the same thing you see here in the port, you need to specify after the underscore. All right. And I think that's the only thing we need to do. Yeah. So by specifying the environment variable port, my front end will be able to listen to the right port. So definition of done, we just have to go inside the container and make sure that that environment variable is actually allocated. All right. So here, I'm just gonna go back to my Nomad server. So Nomad plan frontend.nomad. We see an addition. So the addition is the environment variable called port. Perfect. So Nomad run. And Nomad run frontend.nomad. Okay, great. Now I just need to wait a couple of seconds because it needs to tear down the containers and bring it up. So you see that one is already up, so 1 second ago, but the other one's 4 minutes ago. So I just need to wait, otherwise this is not gonna work. The second one came up. You know what, instead of waiting for all the 5 containers, I think we can do the definition of done in one of them. So let's just go into the container using docker exec-it container ID sh. I'm gonna grab the first one, which is this. So docker exec-it, paste the container ID, and let's invoke the shell. So here I'm inside the container, and if I do env to list the environment variables, there's gonna be a bunch of environment variables, and I wanna filter that. So pipe grep, I wanna look for port. If I do Nomad, it won't show up. So port. And here we go. So we have three environment variables. These are the ones that Nomad injected. So Nomad port HTTP and Nomad host port HTTP. But we also have another environment variable which is called port, which is the one that I defined here. So if you want to define environment variables for your containers, you basically just need to do that inside this env block here. Okay, so it's very, very simple. Now, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna curl, and I think, yeah, curl is not available. So let's just install it. Apk, add, cache, curl. Curl should be available now, and then curl localhost. I do 8080. 8080 not listening to that, which is expected, but it should be listening to, let me bring it up. Where's the environment command here? So it should be listening to localhost 23806. And there it is. So now our front end is listening to the right port, and this is 23,806. If I exit, and I just want to show you that the ports are actually dynamic. That was the first one. Let's see. Let's try this. I think I didn't do that ID. So docker exec. Yep, it starts with 4. So that's definitely different. Okay, so to the curl, should have added curl to the Docker file, so I don't have to do this again. Anyway, okay, curl localhost. Oh, before we do that, we need to know the port. So grab port, uppercase. Okay, so now the port is different, 20,000 instead of 23. If I curl that, 20,000. Lock 20,171. There you go. So we can see our front end. So even though containers are running on different ports, as long as you have the environment variable, all should be good.